guys and girlies. This is episode 8 of the Ethereal Podcast season 2. Thank you for joining us. We are your hosts, Dom, Saige, and welcome
to bullshit.
Hell yeah.
Oh
I
my
think it's
god.
gonna be sad when it's gone. But also it's now that means
If we ever
8
actually update the
episodes
board,
deep of us still not programming that. See,
we don't have to talk about it.
I don't even know how to do it.
It's
Is it in like
how
an
can
app?
we be so on our shit in some aspects of our lives, but the other ones, it's like, I think it's really just an out of sight, out of mind kind of thing.
Yeah, it's the duality.
I hate you.
You know, we just gotta be well-rounded individuals.
Of course.
So
We can't be good at everything.
We're really good at the things we're good at. So we have to be really bad at the things we're not good at. Like, it's just how it balances, keep us humble.
That's fair. Oh, anyways, okay, guys. Today we're gonna talk about this has been a common one. Pushing off the inevitable. And I guess also
That
kind
really
of in a way
happens in,
resistance.
and it happens in so many ways when you really think about it, like pushing off the inevitable. With like anything. Me with Supernatural. I haven't finished. I'm scared.
Don't talk to me.
That shit's over, but I'm not ready. So yet again.
Don't talk to me. Yeah, so specifically pushing off the inevitable when it comes to growth and resisting doing the really hard things that you don't want to do because you have to be vulnerable or really difficult, or you have to break bad habits.
For sure, I literally just posted about this yesterday.
Well, yeah, because it's what the full moon was about in Libra. It's about balancing and like.
Oh, I don't have it for that. I just randomly saw this on Instagram and I posted it. It says the most practical skill in life is learning to do things when you don't feel like doing them. Anyone can do it when it's easy, but most people drop out the minute it gets hard. Shane Parrish. Don't know who that is, but
I mean, that's facts, though. I mean, that's
because healing is not comfortable.
Hell no.
And the way to grow is to heal. So, in order
you
to
grow through discomfort.
Yeah. I saw a TikTok where someone was talking about like, oh, it was that podcast with that couple.
Love them.
I love them. But he was explaining like how like pigs will use like the rocks to like shed to like grow, and people said like, I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place, and he's like, well, that sounds like you're in the middle of shedding and you're growing. Like, and they like point out that it's like a good thing, and I was like, that is such a good.
Not me using that expression just a few days ago. I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. Yeah. Girl, well, I done ripped my shit off and ran away.
That's what I'm growing. It's like, well, in nature, like snakes shed that way, and it means that they're growing, and like it's a good thing.
Not me having 3 snakes tattooed on my body.
And having how many snakes in your home?
Well, yeah. But
you have snakes on your body, snakes in your home. The snake analogies are screaming at you.
Oh, yeah. I saw this post and it was like the spiritual snake or whatever. And it was like the symbol of a snake is so powerful because it symbolizes, if a snake doesn't shed its skin, it'll die. So you have to shed your skin to grow into the next phase of your life. And it was more than that, but it was really poetic, and I was like, oh my god.
Before or after you said that you felt stuck between a rock and a hard place?
I saw that before.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and I was just like, well,
no, that's true though.
I was choosing all of the other hard things in my limost
yeah,
but it turns out that those were the easy things, and I wasn't actually choosing the hard thing, which would give me the most growth. And now I'm finally reluctantly chose that, and now I'm like, well, at least I have all these tools and all these things that help me keep me busy, better myself. But it turns out they were the easy things.
The fun part about the ego is catching when it's just straight fucking lying to you. I literally did that the other night. I don't remember what I thought, but I thought something, and I was in the middle of meditation. I literally, like, the thought that came to my mind whenever I said, ego, I see you, you're fucking lying. and just like kept moving. I was like,
Called her
dude,
out.
like shut the fuck up. Because like I don't know, lost my train of thought.
You were meditating the other night, and the
What
ego
was you saying?
choosing the hard things, the easy
Oh,
things.
the ego will trick you because you'll say, I'm gonna start with the hard things first to get those over with. That's never the fucking case. You're a fucking liar. Your ego is never gonna do the hard thing first by choice. So if your ego is saying it's the easiest, it's the hardest thing, it's lying to you. And that's what I learned
You're
too.
picking it
Yeah, I
as
was
the
like,
hardest thing.
no, this is the hardest thing I could incorporate. And then I was like, if it's the hardest thing, then why are you choosing it first? The ego doesn't is always going to go with pleasure first. Or the ego is choosing it, it's not the hardest thing. The hardest thing is what the ego says, I don't want to do that yet. That's the annoying part.
Ew.
That's gross. Disgusting.
Bro, cutting people out of your life that like are holding you back and no longer serve your highest self. Yeah, I think that's the hardest thing for me.
I'm bad at walking away from people.
Oh yeah, but I've literally been kind of doing that a lot
I've
in the last couple months.
In the past couple months, I walked away and like dropped almost all like the like friendships I had because I started like seeing them for what they truly were, and I was like, wow, I really ran with my idea of what was currently going on instead of being like for real with what was going on, like with these friendships. They just made me feel very, they only wanted to talk to me when it was like benefiting them, or they only came around when we were gonna, if I was offering to like get them fucked up and like stuff like that, where it's like, or they just wanted like realistically they're only my friend because they want to have sex with me one day. That was a big thing for me. And it was like once I started flipping people away, at first it was hard and I felt so much guilt.
But then you feel the power and the energy.
Now I'm just like, dude, I feel untouchable. Why would I spend an extra bit of my energy today giving you that? Why should I give you a little bit more of my energy? Because you're not giving it back to me. So I'm just depleted.
Right. Fill your own cup first and let the excess go to others. Yeah. I feel like I have been doing the easy things by cutting off the easy people.
That's fair.
Because some are obviously harder than others.
For sure.
And, I just did the hardest of them all. So
yeah.
But I don't know, I feel good.
Well, I feel like when you feel good after doing something like that, like, yeah, you're gonna feel like human emotions like sadness and maybe like, I don't know, like disappointment almost, or like whatever the feelings are. It's like if there's not an overwhelming sense of, oh, I fucked up after, it's like, well, even if it doesn't feel good right now, this is what you're supposed to be doing, or your intuition would be screaming at you, whoa, especially if you are an intuitive person. You're someone who listens to your intuition. So if you're not feeling like, oh God, I severely fucked up, it's like, did you?
No, unfortunately, I know this is the right thing.
See, I'm the exact opposite. I kind of lost my shit and I was gonna like cut someone off. And then
you can't do it out of anger.
Like, yeah, I was like, why are you doing that? I was like, right now, because I felt angry and overstimulated. And they were like, mm-hmm. Then I was like, oh, okay, so I'm not supposed to do that. And then I was like, no, because in my occasion, dropping certain people is easier than keeping them around, because keeping them around like right now is more work on my part and me being uncomfortable.
Me with one of my friends, I'm like, literally told him yesterday, I was like, do you know how many times a month I consider cutting you off?
Honest.
He was like, at least once, and I was like, oh no, it's a weekly occurrence.
I think I know which one you're talking about.
Oh yeah, of course you do.
Fair.
I hope he watches this and is like,
just knows.
oh yeah, love you, mean it, but God, you drive me fucking crazy.
That's fair. Yeah, I feel like it's like I saw this quote somewhere, and I don't remember exactly what it was word for word, but basically it said like, peace came to me when I recognized that the relationships in my life weren't to make me happy, but they were to keep me conscious. And I was like, oh, got it. Because when I'm alone, I enter my own reality realm and forget world exists outside of me. So the people I have in my life keep me very grounded in what is going on, and I, surround myself with more people that try to make me more self-aware if I'm not recognizing I'm doing something and how it's like looking or whatever.
Mm-hmm. That's what you
And
have me and Sam for.
yeah, exactly. And
And
that's been
say you
one
did
of the
that shit to me
hardest
last
things.
week. I was like,
It's like it's one of those things where I've been really working on being okay with being uncomfortable. And Sam said something the other day where he was like, I just at this point, he's like, I don't want people in my life if they're not willing to have uncomfortable conversations with me. He's like, because then that means that they're only my friend because I'm bettering their day. And he's like, that's not what I'm here for.
right.
And I was like,
Well,
that's true.
Yeah, the true growth comes from the uncomfortable conversations and situations too.
So like most of my life, I avoided uncomfortable conversations in any way. Even if it got to the point where if someone was getting way too opinionated about something and I couldn't shut them down, I would just start agreeing because I didn't want the uncomfortability. And now I'm like, what the fuck
I've
was that?
seen you do that.
Dude, I get so mad when because sometimes now if I do it, it's literally like I slip into something and don't even recognize I'm doing it. So I probably dissociate it and I'm just like robot. And that's how I used to react. And so now I'm like, dude, snap out of it. So I'm so bad at that where it's like if I have an opinion and I think it's gonna rock the boat, I'm like, let's not do that. I'm not.
Unfortunately, I have a lot of jujitsu friends on Facebook now, and I feel like a handful of them are more so right winged, maybe a little conservative. And there are quite literally some things that I'm like, oh yes, queen, share this post, but then I'm like, let me not, because there's been posts that I've shared that like a bunch of them hop on in the comments and are like having a field day, and I'm like,
I don't want this.
I don't even have the energy to sit here and argue with your stupidness. Goodbye.
Literally, it's like I just want
to share a post that I liked and I agreed with. You didn't need to comment on it.
Yeah, well, that's when me and Sam were talking about the conversations thing with people. One of the big things we were talking about was that the reason why people are not good with the uncomfortable conversations is because people always try to find an equal ground instead of just discussing your opposite views. And he's like, I should be able.
Just randomly saw bubbles flying in the window, and I'm just so confused.
Oh my god, yeah, I saw something from the corner of my eye. I was like, what the fuck's over there?
Anyways,
shit.
Yeah, my bad, bro. I was like, why the fuck are there bubbles?
That wasn't even your fault. I saw something over there too. What was I talking about?
The uncomfortable conversations.
The reason why, for instance, you don't want to that post, do the post forever, and why I don't want to voice an opinion is because we live in a reality where most people don't if you don't both agree. And so instead of you just being able to, this is my opinion, boop, people feel threatened by you having a different opinion. So then they push their opinion at you. And so it's learning how to be confident in your own opinions and not let it get swayed just because someone that you respect doesn't do that same thing.
And that's how this particular friend is. Because he'll be like, well, no, that was my nice way of saying you're wrong. And I was like, there is no right and wrong. You don't know what, that's subjective. It's right in your perspective based on your reality and your knowledge. Honey bunches, I don't agree. But we don't have to agree. And I've stopped arguing with him because I'm just like, you just want to debate everything.
Yeah.
Can you?
No, I've been bad for that too. But honestly, now as I get older, I've learned that it just comes across that way to people. Even I think it's the poor social cues. Me and Sam were talking about this other day because he was I don't. He's like, why is this? And I'm like, I thought. He's like, why after I said that you had to say this and it was the opposite or whatever. And I was like, well, I wasn't trying to take away from what you just said. I was like, I was just spitting what I was thinking. He was like,
it's the tism.
Okay. And he was like, do you see how that could have came across? And I was like, no. He's like, all right. And I was like, I'm sorry it came across that way. I just don't get it. Because I'm like, I really don't. I do not. And it's so frustrating. When you're trying, when someone's bringing up a very consistent problem and you're like, I know why it exists. And Believe it or not, I try. I try to understand these things, and I just don't. Literally.
I feel like I'm doing my best.
No, I saw this TikTok, and it changed. It made everything make sense because one of the things like autism like testing, they're like, do you take everything literal? And I I forever thought this was a no for me because how could I think everything is literal? I took the damn question literal.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel that. And then I realized the reason why, like, I understand sarcastic tone and I can understand why when someone's being sarcastic, but my brain is right off the bat gonna process it as literal before anything else gets picked up. So sometimes I don't catch that that's what's going on.
Same though.
And I'm like, oh, got it.
Sometimes if it's over text, you can't be sarcastic with me.
I tell people
because I'll respond with a big paragraph, and they're like, "Oh, babes, no." Like I was joking. Like I know that
if
I was being sarcastic, and I'm like,
if I'm being really sarcastic at this point, I'll do I'll do a bunch of emojis in it. Because I don't use emojis in my conversation. That's so stupid. And I also text stupid. Like I won't text proper. Like, you know, I type forward. Same. When I'm being sarcastic, I'll be like, you are like I make some like trying to like make it look obvious. Like that's how you know.
Me too.
I'm trying to make it really like apparent.
Me too.
Because I'm like, I don't know how you know.
Sometimes I don't even know how to use sarcasm correctly.
Sometimes I think I do.
And then people think
that it's wrong. Yeah. They're like, that's not.
They're like, you're being too serious. And I'm like,
I was joking.
Yeah.
That's the worst. When you're genuine to God joking with them.
And then it's just awkward after that because you're like,
they're like, dude.
And then you're like, I guess I didn't do it right.
Why do you keep arguing or whatever? And like, what?
I have goosebumps. Because I'm like, that feeling of like when they get mad or upset or they're like, no, that wasn't. And I'm like,
at this point, I'm just like, I don't make myself care anymore. Like, I try to do better next time. But when someone tells me, like, at this point, like, I really try to not give a flying shit when they tell me, like, and not take it, like, personally. Because that's what hurts me every time. Because I'm like, what's it gonna do? It don't help me at all. Then I just get in the tunnel of feeling so bad. So I'm just like, I've been working at this for 27 years. I'm like, I should be better.
Can't fix autism sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I also forget sometimes that I'm mentally ill. So I'll be like, I totally feel great. I don't feel anxious. There's no depression. Like, oh my God, like I am mentally healthy. And then I'm like, then I have a switch and I'm like, no, she's happy. Maybe she isn't depressed. And I'm like, so I'll forget. I have DID sometimes. And then I'm like, what am I doing? I'll be like, why am I so inconsistent? I go through stints where for weeks I'm so good at what I'm doing, and then I don't know what I'm doing the other few weeks, and I'm like,
girly,
girl, you switched. Different habits.
You are mentally unwell sometimes.
Blows my mind. Blows my noggin.
God. Yeah. So what else? What else is on the topic agenda today?
I don't know. I've just been like working, you know, at self-acceptance and shit in my book. About it.
Me too. I also realized that I've been learning some crazy shit and the body keeps the score. The DSM-5 was released like essentially earlier than it was supposed to be, and a lot of the psychiatrists and therapists and researchers and stuff agreed that there were not many changes or updates between 4 and 5, but they put it out because it's like some like $500 million revenue from it, because every teacher, scientist, psychiatrist would be forced to buy a copy of it. And yeah, I just thought that was pretty messed up, but
that's messed up, but it makes sense, you know.
Yeah. But also what I'm reading is like so many mental illnesses and like diagnosis are all like born in trauma, and like at the end of the day, like the very early years of our
Mm-hmm.
lives play into it, and not many, if any, people at all are actually born with these chemical imbalances.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought that was pretty wild. It gave me a lot more determination, and like just more passion for like breath work
That's
and
fair.
helping people heal the roots of their traumas, and gain that power back and that self-confidence, because a lot of people are acting off of a sense of fighting for their lives and helplessness that was born in them at a very young age. Yeah, it blows. This book blows my mind. I've talked about it on so many episodes, but if you
Yeah,
guys
I was gonna
haven't,
say.
if y'all haven't read the book, The Body Keeps the Score, please go get it. Listen to the audio version of it. It is, whatever you do, it's incredible.
Yeah, I still need to read it.
Yeah, I'm still only halfway through because it's just like so much at once, but it's really incredible. So like I don't know. I I understand people are definitely mentally ill and they have a lot of issues, but I don't like using the label like, oh, I have BPD, I have ADHD, this, that, and the other, because a lot of the times ADHD is born through trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not 100% of the time, but like most of the time.
I try to live.
There's like actual hardcore research backing this up. So
Mm-hmm.
like, don't come at me, people, because like it's dead ass.
I
Just do some
didn't make it
research.
up. I'm just telling you.
I'm just quite literally quoting.
That's fair. I feel like I try to live my life without any labels. Like when a question is asked, I'll give an answer. But it's like I say, like I forget that I have mental illness until I'm dealing with it at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I forget these things exist until I'm dealing with it because I'm not like referencing it and letting it kind of like control as much as my day to day as it was.
Right,
And it's
because
like I still deal with these problems, but because I'm
you're not
addressing
giving
it
it power.
differently, yeah, it's like, certain things I can look at it a different way and go about it a different way. I like to symptom treat like you would if you have the flu.
Mm-hmm.
Just symptom treat. You don't have to be like,
But
oh, I'm ADHD and there's no way to treat this. Just go, well, what symptoms are currently from the ADHD that's really bothering you with your day to day, and try
right,
to how to help those symptoms.
and you symptom treat while you simultaneously try to heal the root issue as
Mm-hmm.
well and get to the root, because that's what your like big overall healing is,
Yeah.
trying to understand the roots of things and causes while you're also treating the symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people just like to give their mental illnesses so much power over themselves, and at some point or another you do have to understand that like you have the ability and the power to change, and it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of work, and a lot of different practices, but you have to ultimately believe that you can do it. It's not going to be easy. It's not like,
I think that's the big thing, believing you can do it.
yeah,
Because if you don't believe you can get somewhere, you're never even going to give real effort to get there.
right.
And I feel like in any aspect that really slows people down in anything that they're doing. Because if you don't believe that you can get to a point where I'll use DID because that's what I have. Like if if I don't believe that there's going to be a point where I won't have such massive gaps of time where I am not being the version of me that I like the best, then I'm not sitting here so depressed that that's just going to be my reality. I'm going, I believe that I can get where it's not as big of gaps or it's more consistent. It works more with me. It's just going to take a lot of effort to get there. And I'm not going
Right.
to stop till I get there because I know I can do it.
Right.
But it's like without the belief, it was a lot worse for me.
Yeah. Straight up. And because like, hasn't it's been proven that DID can be,
DID is formed from typically early childhood trauma.
so
It
it
causes
can
you to
be
fragment.
like reversed in a sense,
Well, basically, yeah, kind
or
of.
come together all as a whole.
Yeah, come together. That's why I say like Sage all the time is like the vehicle that we're all in.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I say is because whenever children start in life, their personality is fragmented. Every single child.
Right.
If you have certain traumas or whatever things affect you in certain ways in those years, instead of when you're 6, 7, 8, 9, instead of your personalities merging as one that gives you your personality going into early life, they stay fragmented.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's something that's keeping them from being cohesive. Typically, because certain altars will hold certain memories that the rest don't want to know.
Right.
So that's
To
what
try and
keeps them
protect them from
fragmented.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think if you can reach that point of truly understanding all the different things you've gone through, I think you can, just from like my reference point when I didn't know versus when I know versus the work I've done, I used to go months at a time, switch and come back to have the host come back, have no memory for months at a time. And now it's like a couple weeks
Like a lot
on a
shorter
bad
span.
time. Yeah, and that's like when I'm having a really bad time. There's sometimes where a switch really isn't that long, and I sometimes can still remember most of it.
Right.
And so it's like the only thing that changed between then and now is knowing that that's what was going on. So I started treating what was causing it, which was the depression, repressed memories, the unloving of the different versions of myself, and all of that. And that's caused
Right.
a significant difference in my life where I'm like, there has to be something to that.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes strictly off of just that's what they know causes it. Just like BPD is caused by trauma. So I
Mm-hmm.
believe that that can reach a more stable ground.
Right.
It's like anything like that, you know, it's something that's trauma based. Even if you can't get rid of it altogether because the trauma touched you in a way where it just, you can't undo it, doesn't mean it's going to be severe forever.
Right.
Doesn't mean you can't get to a point where it's like, you know, it exists, but it's really where those things come up. Like,
It's not holding you back anymore.
yeah,
It's not preventing you from being your best self.
right.
And honestly, when I came across Believe in Your Breath and their Instagram page, in the like the bio, it was something about treating stress, anxiety, ADHD, and I was like, what? How can breathing help ADHD? And I'm not gonna lie to you, after the last 3.5 months of doing breath work, my ADHD symptoms are way less severe. I'm way more organized. Executive dysfunction. My brain just kept wanting to say erectile dysfunction. I was like, what is happening? I was like, what? That's not the correct. Why are there so many different like words for ED? And like, it's an acronym for a few different things.
Because
it's confusing.
People like to shorthand everything. So the ED is only like one thing to the medical field. Everything else that has similar things have different letters in it to help you understand the difference. But like average Joe Blow that just wants to shorten the words just use the first and second like word, and you're like, okay, now it's so many fucking words that are the same thing. Okay, how do you know what they're talking about?
Okay, well, my executive dysfunction has significantly improved through daily breathwork techniques and practices and restoring the natural flow of breath, because as we've talked about, people breathe too much, too often, too shallow, and it's significantly keeping them in a state of fight or flight and the body's stress response and so many other things. So if you know certain traumas and ADHD and stuff like that, a lot of that was born through stress responses and being in the fight or flight mode, then if you can activate and regulate the two nervous systems, parasympathetic and sympathetic, then you can kind of get rid of or decrease some of the severity of some of those symptoms.
No, for sure. It would, I feel like if they actually had a way to figure out this number, like the percentage wise, the amount of people, like full grown adults, that are like constantly living in fight or flight, if they could get that percentage, people would be so shocked. Because I swear to God, most people live in fight or flight.
I think there is Dr. Joe Dispenza. I was watching one of his videos, and I think it was something around like 70% of.
I believe it, because it's like
maybe even more, but yeah.
Well, I have the general belief that this particular like realm, like outside of that, is the bottom three chakras, and so it makes sense to me that most people would struggle with being a fight or flee, freeze, or whatever, because it's like what I think one of the biggest things our souls like being tested with here is like, well, you need to feel secure, you need to feel like these different things. So in order to get to understand, you need to feel that. I feel like most people just start out in fight or flight, and then they don't realize that's what they're in. Once after a while of living in something, it just becomes normal.
Yeah.
So it's like they don't
Especially
even
if you
realize.
like grow up feeling it and you never experience the safety and security. And that's when like people experience burnout and they start to heal and then they have no energy and motivation. It's like, yeah, because your body was purely running on the fuel of stress hormones.
Yeah.
And that's fucking crazy. And I went through that as well.
Yeah, it's really wild.
And like there was a solid 2 years of my life where I was just like, I don't want to do anything. I don't have any motivation. I just want to smoke weed. And once I started to heal, I realized I was like, oh, that was me burnt out. That was me coming out of the fight or flight.
Burnout. That's just wild. The way it affects the body.
After
People don't
working
realize.
I guess corporate type job for like 4 years. Girl, when I quit that job, I was just so constantly tired and like unmotivated and had no will to do anything in life. I was like,
and the thing about every burnout, like, because everyone can experience burnout. There's different types of burnout. It's all kind of the same thing, but like an ADHD burnout is slightly different than like a strictly autistic burnout, like for instance. But all of the burnouts, they take so much longer to get back to a baseline than you think.
2 to 5 years.
Yeah, and here's the thing, and I only can reference the autistic burnouts because that's the one I looked into, obviously. So I don't have reference to other burnouts. But the thing with autistic burnouts is that when you have an autistic burnout, that's typically caused from masking way too much, pushing yourself past your limit, whatever. When that happens to me, for instance, what typically happens is it's basically like this like reset basically happens in the body. The body's trying to like figure it out, and there's skill regression in all the things that you were good at for the most part, and it has to build back up. That to me, most annoying part about the burnout I had is looking at all the things that I used to be able to do that are still like now it might be better, but like aren't like what they were.
Right.
And it's like, dude, I know where I was at. Why am I here? And it's literally just because like when you push yourself too hard for too long and you have a burnout, you don't realize it's not just gonna be, you just feel better. Like I thought that would be it. Like eventually I'll just feel less burnt out. And it's like, yeah. Also, all your skills, relearn them. All of them. Get all your patterns back, all your routines. You lost all of your discipline, all your structure. Get it all back. And it's like, what the fuck was this?
Yeah.
It is so frustrating. Like that was my biggest thing is I completely, when I had my burnout, like the big burnout, I completely
Was
lost.
that right after you quit nursing?
Yeah, that was when I allowed myself to really embrace what had happened. Because I had reached the burnout really was happening in 2018 is when it started. And I just kept trying to push past it, which ended me in the Adderall addiction I had because I kept just trying to stay in what I was doing and keep it up. And then eventually, crash happened. Because you can't stay up forever. But my biggest thing that I lost that really pissed me off was my discipline because I was so disciplined my entire life. And the second the burnout happened, I lost all.
Because you have to restructure it because it was built off of the flight or fight.
Yeah, so
trauma
it's like my discipline. I realized because that's what happened when I realized it was in 2020 was because I decided I was going to go to school for that semester, right? And I signed up. I go through all the stuff to get it in, get whatever, get my classes. Didn't do a singular thing the whole semester. And I said, why? I always loved school. I thought this would be great. And then I said, why were you good at school? Why did you do your homework? Why did you get good grades? And I said, I was scared to fail. And I was like, are you afraid to fail now? I said, no, I don't give a fuck if I fail. And I was like, and that's why you don't have discipline anymore. You're not afraid to fail. And I only had discipline because I was afraid to fuck up. I don't care if I fuck up anymore. I don't care if I fail. If I go through it all and I still fucked up, whatever, I tried. Right.
And you didn't have that deep sense of unconditional love. And I feel like that's where a lot of, for yourself, I feel like that's where a lot of self-discipline comes from, is from
100%.
loving yourself.
Yeah,
and wanting the best for
100%.
yourself.
But
So
for instance,
the way it all
I was
it's like
having
a
a
bowl of
hard
spaghetti
time
is
with
all
like getting up early because it's like the discipline of waking up and staying awake until you feel awake. Because when you first wake up, I don't know what y'all. When I first wake up, it's so hard to fucking stay awake.
You were so funny when you first wake
It's
up.
so fucking hard for me to stay awake, dude.
Me too. I've been getting up at like 7 though, and I'm like,
Well, me too. Now, so I
that's
was having
nice.
problems where I wasn't doing that, and I was like, dude. And then I had that realization. I've been working on a lot of stuff, and then last night I looked at Sam and I said, I was like, I've been waking up at 7 the past few days, or like a week or so, and I was like, and aside from Sunday, that was my off day. I gave myself off day. But I was like, I've been waking up at 7 and every other day. And I was like, and what I realized is it was a frame of mind I need to reference. Cause like I want to get to the point where I'm waking up at like 6 a.m.
Me too.
And I was like, and it changed from.
Isn't it crazy how that changes over time? You're like, I want to sleep till 10 every day. Fuck waking up early.
What happened was, like I told Sam, what happened was that, like, for instance, I was referencing I had work, I leave for work at 10. I leave for the podcast at 10 for most days. So like it's very consistent in the week for me. And so I wake up at 7 and I have all this time, to do what I want to do. And I told Sam it changed from I have to wake up at 7 because of work to I'm going to wake up at 7 so I can do all these things I want to do before I go to work. I was like, so it's like I want to get up now and then I told Sam, I was like, I know that I'm eventually going to be someone who gets up at 6 a.m. most days of the week. And he was like, why? And I said, because I've thought it and I've said it multiple times the past few days. And I recognize that at first, on that first day, when I was like, I'm gonna wake up early again, I started at 7:30. And by the time I left, I said, I wish I would have got up at 7 so I had more time. And I said, I'm gonna end up picking 6 so I have more time because I want to do some whatever little house chores and I want to write on the book because it's hard after work to write in the book. It really is. My mental drain is
your brain is different. I was listening to Huberman Lab podcast yesterday, and like your brain cognition. Yeah, cognition.
I know what you mean. I don't know. Phrasing.
The cognitive
function of your brain you can make it longer.
Yeah, is way higher and more focused during the day. You have more mental clarity, and by nighttime it's kind of like you're like a different person. And so yeah, I've started waking up earlier because I'm like, I want to do a cold plunge every morning for 30 days. So that takes time to set up the ice, sit in the cold plunge, dry off, go warm up out in the sun. And then I've started this 21-day master your breath program, and that takes about 30 minutes of the morning because I have to watch a video clip, I have to read an article, and then I have to do the practice itself. And then I have to pack up all my stuff for going to the gym, change of clothes after jiu-jitsu. I have to make myself breakfast. I have to feed the animals. I have to do all these things in the morning. And it got to a point where I was just like late to jiu-jitsu every day. And I was like, okay, this is not going to fly. I can't get up at 8 a.m. anymore. I have to get up at 7.
Yeah, I was getting to work at like 10:45 because I know Chef doesn't care. If it's like, unless it's like 11, I work at 10:30. Unless it's like 11, he doesn't give a shit.
I know they don't care at jiu-jitsu, but I get so uncomfortable walking in and everybody's on the mats and they're like, hey, you're not a purple belt yet.
Well, see what really got me, what purple belt have to do with
there's this whole thing, like when you're a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, you show up late and skip the warm-ups.
Is that like someone who's like really top dog?
No. It's like the middle ground of the belts. But why would the purple belts just, it's just like, they're like, oh, I'm good. I don't need to show up for warm-ups. But by the time you're a black belt, you're like, I have to warm up or I'm
got it. It's the arrogant stage.
I guess, like yeah. Theory. And they're like, oh, that belt's not purple yet. And I'm like, shut up. I had a lot to do this morning. Okay.
Yeah, see, I was
in reality, I just need to get up earlier.
Yeah, that was for me. Like, I was getting to work at that time and it was fine. But then I was like, I pride myself on being punctual and I get pissed off when I'm not. Yep. Like today when I was late, I was like, I'm fucking pissed because I was running.
I was like, you good?
I was 8 minutes late leaving the house and I said, that's fine. It won't be that long extra. I got in the fucking car on E. I said, oh my God. So then I had to stop at the gas station, go in, pay. The girl took forever, run her mouth, would not pay me. I was like, please just let me get my gas and go.
I hate when people do that.
Yes, like she was just sitting there talking to this dude that wasn't even buying anything. I was like, was like, dude, I got somewhere to be.
I had to get in my therapy call on Tuesday, and we can end after this note, but I go in to get a poke bowl, and there were 2 people in there, and usually there's nobody in there, and I was like, fuck, because it takes a few minutes. It does.
People in front of you.
It takes a few minutes to build a poke bowl. And so the girl goes through, she gets hers, and her boyfriend, like, he looks like he's not getting one, but then he walks back up to the front, and I was like visibly freaking out because he kept like clicking his key, which was making a loud noise, and it was overstimulating me. And I was already freaking out because I was late for therapy, and I was like, and so I looked at him. I was like,
in the raw.
I was like, "Are you getting a bowl too?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I was like, "I'm really late right now. Is there any way I could just like go in front of you?" Like, I'm kind of freaking out right now. And he was like, he goes, "Yeah, I saw that. I was gonna ask you if you were okay." And the way that I almost told this man, "Bro, can you stop clicking your thing?" But I was like, "No, I can't be mean. Let me not let the overstimulation get." I was like, I just plugged my ears and took some deep breaths, and I was like, "Do you think I could?" And he was like, "Yeah, girl, no problem." He let me go, and I was like,
"No fucking way." I think I could have never done it. I wouldn't even thought of that. That's the real thing, okay? It's
I
not
had
that I
to.
wouldn't do it. It's that I don't even think of that. Like in
Why?
those situations, you know what I think? I forget that other people, I guess, are functional and can work with me, I guess. Because in my head,
if you don't ask, you'll miss 100% of the shots.
if the question will come to your head, how do you get there? Because deadass, if I'm running late, then I'm stressing.
Do you think, what can I do about this?
No. I go, well, you got yourself in the situation. You knew you had things to go.
Whose voice is that?
The part of me that goes, you got yourself in the situation because you got here late.
I feel like that sounds like an authoritative voice in your life that maybe didn't come from you.
Maybe, but it's, I guess, also, well, it's like I don't think it falls on the people. It's literally just like, I think, I don't know what it is. It's just like it doesn't.
I'm like, what can I do?
Cross my mind at all. I'm just like, it's okay. You know what it is? It's because I go, this must be the universe teaching me patience. Don't question it. I immediately get full of patience. I don't care how late I'm going. I just go, well, there's something I can do now. This is patience. Learn it. Okay. And I'll just sit there and take it.
See, I'm like that too. But also on the other hand, I was like, look, people are nice. Let me give people the opportunity to spread some kindness in the world, help a sister out. You know,
I just wouldn't have even thought that was an option, like to get in front of him. Like in my head, I would just be like, well, they're probably paying on the same ticket, so they need to go up at the same time. Period.
They weren't paying on the same ticket, but the girl just left her bowl sitting there and waited.
Well, I think also
it took like 2 minutes because I was real quick.
Autism plays a part because I just don't even like. I'm trying to think if there's ever been a situation like that where I've ever thought to ask, "Hey, no." Even if I'm standing in line at a grocery store and I have one item but it's heavy, and the person in front of me got a bunch of shit in front of me, I would never even think to ask, "Hey, can I have it for you?" Never.
I've had people like offer.
Yeah, I've had people offer.
I also think that it could maybe be a learned behavior for me because my mom has done shit like that her entire life.
If I have a bunch of shit and I see someone behind me has like only a couple things, I'll be like, "You want to go in front of me?" But I've never done the opposite side, I guess.
Well, if you put out that kindness in the world, why shouldn't you get it back in karma?
Yeah, so they should ask me, "Do you want me to go in front?" That's what my brain
But if
says,
they don't know, they don't realize it, you know,
I don't know. I don't know. In the moment when it's me on the receiving end, I don't even remember that's an option. That's really the problem. I just don't forget. I forget things exist in all aspects. Like I just, like as you said, you asked that. I said, I literally was like, I didn't even think that was a possible route in this story.
I didn't think he was getting a bowl. I thought it was just her, and then he walked back up in the front, and I was like,
I literally thought you were gonna be like, yeah, answer my phone with a therapist and said, hold on, I'm getting my Pokeball.
I already let her know that I was gonna be late, so I was already 15 minutes late, and it was just,
girl, she was sitting there like, my bills is paid, I don't care. So your time.
No, because it got so long. She was like, "Do you want to just reschedule?" And I was like, "No, therapy today."
Like, no, even 5 minutes is enough.
I'm like, "No, I don't think you understand." Yeah. So, anyways, on that note, thanks for coming to our TED Talk.
Yeah, thanks for that. I didn't even think that was an option for real.
She's gonna have a whole thing about this for the rest of the day.
I'm like, this is crazy. I never even thought, like, it literally took me on a different route in that storytelling that I even thought was real. That was an option.
I don't even remember the point of my story. But
you know.
all right, guys, that's a wrap for episode 8 of the Ethereal Podcast. Thanks for joining us. Hope you guys have a great week, and we will see you next time.